for actual topic, uh, with the release of I was about to say Spider-Man PS4. with the release of Spawn in Mortal Kombat 11, and what with our recent Spawn memeing, I decided, you know what? I'm gonna watch the '90s Spawn HBO series because I had seen it ages ago, but I barely remembered it. Okay, but I didn't remember hating it, and also I wanted to brush up on the character because I've always respected Spawn as a character. Like, in terms of, like, his design, you know?
Yeah.
And I also kind of understand, at least, like, from... I didn't do, like, big super research, but at least from what I read up on, you know, Todd McFarlane, I kind of got where he was coming from when he was like, you know what, fuck this, and he left Marvel and, you know, did his own thing. So, yeah, and, you know, other people have said it far before me, but, you know, they're right. Spawn basically is the '90s, like as a character. Like he perfectly encapsulates all of like the quote unquote dark side of the '90s in one character. You know, like even his dialogue in Mortal Kombat 11 is very nice. It's great, but yeah. So I've always liked Spawn, but I never knew that much about him. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna fix that. So I'll say it now. This review might have spoilers, but I don't think it will, because I'm gonna try and keep this review to a minimum. We'll see. But yeah. So first and foremost, it's very clear. I guess if you guys want the short answer, if you want an introduction to Spawn, like you don't want his whole story, but you want like an intro to get to know like what he's about, how his tale kicks off, etc. Then yeah, this cartoon is a great way to do it. Because from what I understand, even though the cartoon got canceled, so it doesn't really have an ending, it just kind of stops at a certain point. It does, for the most part, follow the comic pretty closely. They do change a couple things, but from what I understand, they're pretty minor. So that's pretty cool. That said, I did have a couple issues. They're not like big ones, but they are ones that I guess you could also blame on the cartoon getting canceled. But first and foremost, the animation in the show is great. It's very '90s though, like, and that's not to say it's bad. It's just that if you want a '90s ass looking '90s cartoon, like a comic book cartoon, like a lot of people point to like Batman the Animated Series. No, this man, this has all of that. Like the one feature that I always point to, especially in terms of '90s anime, is heavy shadows everywhere to hide the fact that we don't have a lot of detail. You know. And like for a character like Spawn, though, it at least makes sense because he's supposed to be like a night demon, yeah. punishing the damned, etc. But yeah, that said, I did notice. Speaking of the animation, it is very well done for the most part, but I did notice a few parts where they very obviously cut corners. Like I believe it was the first episode of season 2, if I remember right. There's a scene where a character is talking, and they literally just kind of like mouth flapped him and looped it, and it does not sync up with what he's saying like at all. And I'm like, oh my god. But
speaking of anime,
I know, right? But yeah, and so that's too where I want to get in this, because a lot of people definitely will think of Batman for a lot of things in terms of this cartoon, the art style, the general tone, although this is like an R-rated version, stuff like that. And, because that's the thing. Spawn is the love child of pretty much everything Todd McFarlane learned over at Marvel. Spawn himself, both his story and his character, is literally a fusion of Venom, Doctor Strange, Batman, and then the Punisher. Like, those four just smashed into one character in that Spawn. So, and I respect it. I do. Because it's pulled off well, for the most part. So then you might be wondering, well, what is the premise of Spawn? I just know him as this dude who wears black and he has a red cloak and he fires guns and he has chains and stuff. He's like Ghost Rider, kinda, which that's another common comparison people make. Well, basically, Al Simmons, a veteran of, I believe they said it was the Vietnam War, although I could be wrong about that. He, at some point in his life, he dies under a mysterious circumstance. He, in fact, gets burned alive. Not very pleasant. And when he awakes in the afterlife, he finds that he has actually gone to hell. And while in hell, he meets a greater demon called Malbolgia, who offers him a deal.